Right then guys, it's PSL here for the second episode covering the Sprint Championship on F1 2018. You can see the current Drivers' Championship standings on screen with Kimi Räikkönen and Lewis Hamilton, the two race winners, on top. Then it's Max Verstappen and Sergei Sirotkin, the two drivers to have finished second in the Grand Prix. All the way down at the very bottom is Stoffel Vandoorne, the only driver as of yet not to have scored a point. And here we are for the French Grand Prix at the Paul Ricard circuit. And what a strange inaugural Grand Prix on this channel for the Paul Ricard circuit. Stoffel Vandoorne will be starting from pole position, Esteban Ocon in second, because of course the starting grid is a reverse of the current Drivers' Championship standings. So there's Valtteri Bottas. For some reason the game loves showing us Valtteri Bottas. Anyway, the starting grid. So we already know the front two positions, Vandoorne and Esteban Ocon. In third place on the starting grid, it's Marcus Ericsson. Fourth, Nico Hülkenberg. Then it's Alonso, Ricciardo. This is just a list of names of drivers who have got unlucky in this championship. Sainz, Bottas, Leclerc, myself, Magnussen in 10th. Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez, Grosjean, Hartley, Gasly, Sebastian Vettel in 16th, Sirotkin starting in between Vettel and Verstappen, and then you've got Hamilton in 19th, and Kimi Räikkönen for the second race in this championship will be starting from 20th. So then, I have no idea what to expect. We've got a reverse Drivers' Championship grid. In reality, it's more of a mixed up grid. But let's see how the French Grand Prix plays out as the lights are out and away we go. And my start is again substandard for the third time in this championship. So I'm dropping back behind the 9 drivers in front of me, but you've got Charles Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas side by side. This is a great battle between the Sauber and Mercedes drivers. Leclerc's lost out on that, so that means he's now so close to me. But Leclerc, he's wise, he's gone and defended the inside line. However, for this next corner, I'm going around to the outside to the inside, and I've been able to pass Leclerc. Bottas, that wasn't really great, to be honest. Bottas moving out of the way, which is the sort of reaction from the AI you would see on F1 2016, 15, so that's not great. I think Bottas thought I was going to crash into him, and I'm fairly certain I wasn't. Anyway, Esteban Ocon, starting from second on the starting grid. Now it's quite a long run down towards the first corner, so I would imagine that Ocon used his Mercedes power to just sweep around the outside of Vandoorne. That is not what happened. Vandoorne went into the first corner in first. He exited it in first. Now coming up to the second braking zone, Ocon's got the inside line. Vandoorne's got the slight track position, but then again Ocon inside line again for two successive corners now. Ocon inside line, he's got the track position. Again the inside line, but Vandoorne is still sticking around his outside. Side by side still, Ocon and Vandoorne, and heading onto the back straight, Esteban Ocon has lost out to Stoffel Vandoorne, but Ocon again, he can use his Mercedes power, as we saw in the Belgian Grand Prix, to easily get past Vandoorne. But that's Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault getting past Esteban Ocon. Well, that is incredibly strange. Ocon had the power advantage on the McLaren Renault, but not on the Works Renault. Hülkenberg doing brilliantly well, but heading into this flat-out right-hander, Ocon has taken the race lead. So that's the first time in this Grand Prix that the race lead has been settled, but not decided. Now, Stoffel Vandoorne, I do feel bad for him, because through the corners, where driver skill actually matters, he did fantastically. But then, down the start-finish straight, where there was very, very little he could do, he lost out. So, you know, you can have all the skill in the world, but you can't really override a power disadvantage. That's Ericsson in the Sauber Ferrari getting past Vandoorne. Luckily, Vandoorne isn't boxed in, unlike Ericsson, so that's Ericsson. He has to concede the position to Vandoorne. But Vandoorne did nothing wrong there, yet he lost out. Which actually, that is how you could describe Vandoorne's entire F1 career. He's done nothing wrong, but yet he's being, well, kicked out of McLaren in favour of Lando Norris. Anyway, Daniel Ricciardo, someone who's moving teams next season in Formula 1. He's behind Fernando Alonso in the other McLaren. And Ricciardo catching down the start-finish straight, and heading into the first corner, swept around the outside, and that is Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Fernando Alonso. So that's a brilliant move for Daniel Ricciardo. He's definitely the driver making movement throughout the field. I, of course, have passed 2 drivers, and I think potentially a third one. I'm trying to see if I can get past Carlos Sainz, and again, Sainz was fairly fair actually on me there, quite lenient, but I did ride up on the curb. Anyway, on the power, start-finish straight, got past Carlos Sainz ahead. There is the move between Alonso and Daniel Ricciardo. So that's me up into 7th place. I don't see myself in a Haas beating Ricciardo, especially as before I've even had a chance to even contemplate making a move on Fernando Alonso, Ricciardo is already attacking Marcus Ericsson. So down the back straight, heading into the chicane, and that was a fantastic move from Ricciardo actually. Late on the brakes, left plenty of space for the Sauber driver, and still got the overtake done. Fantastic move from Ricciardo. Now Sergio Perez, he's coming up behind the other Sauber driver of Charles Leclerc. So Perez, again, another Force India with the Mercedes engine. And I think the Force India car is the quickest one, or joint quickest car in a straight line. So Perez, it's fairly academic for him to get past a Sauber, which is much slower in a straight line. Anyway, I'm still in 7th place, Fernando Alonso up ahead. In fact, actually, that is Fernando Alonso getting past Marcus Ericsson. They're side by side though, so I can't actually do anything. Yellow flags, Ocon spun around, and Ericsson has clattered into Esteban Ocon. Bottas has passed me under yellow flags. And in all of that, I've lost a position to Valtteri Bottas. That is quite something. So, Esteban Ocon, the race leader, he still has to contend with Nico Hülkenberg. This is a battle which was not going to die down. As I said earlier on, Ocon has the race lead temporarily. It was settled. The battle was settled but not decided. Hülkenberg with the better run, Ocon with the greater power. There's Ricciardo and Van Dorn. So it was a 4-way scrap for the race lead. Ocon just squeezed in between a number of cars. There's Ericsson clattering into Ocon. Just a reminder, there is no damage in this championship. You can't alter that at all, because or else I would have put damage on. And also, the championship wouldn't have been 5-lap distance if I could have changed that. So Nico Hülkenberg, hopefully we should get an idea of what's happened. Hülkenberg, he was in the race lead, but then Ocon goes by, Ricciardo goes by, Ricciardo's got DRS, Ocon locks up, and actually Hülkenberg, I think, was almost push-started. But the lockup, well, let's have a look at it. From Ocon's perspective, I don't think the lockup actually caused the crash. Not really, because Ocon was still very close to the apex of the turn. Not at a great angle, but he was still close to the apex. So I think that's a racing incident. I think Ricciardo could have left Ocon more space, but at the same time Ocon didn't approach the corner in the best fashion. So that's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. I lost a position from all of that. Valtteri Bottas overtook me under yellow flags. Yes, I basically did an emergency stop, but I had to. There's Carlos Sainz making a vital mistake, losing 2 places, 1 to Bottas and 1 to myself. So I'm back up into 7th place, so I'm reasonably happy, but at the same time, Valtteri Bottas, he didn't, even if the overtake was legal on me, he didn't have to work hard for it, because, well, he was just in the right place at the right time when that collision happened. I was on a collision course with Ocon. I would have crashed into him had I not 1, done an emergency stop, and 2, had Ericsson not crashed into him for me. Anyway, there's Bottas getting past Ericsson and Stoffel Van Dorn. So that's, in fact, no, that's Fernando Alonso. He's got Van Dorn next on his hit list. So that's Valtteri Bottas moving further and further away from me. And that is Marcus Ericsson. I have finally caught back up and overtaken him. 6th place on the final lap of the Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso a couple of seconds up the road, so there's no way I'm going to beat him. And here's Daniel Ricciardo, a man who caused the chaos behind him, arguably, but certainly the quickest guy in the top half of the field. He did well and deserves completely the race win. However, of course, he was benefited by the fact he hadn't done well in the previous races. However, he still had to pass Fernando Alonso, Van Dorn, Ocon, Hulkenberg, lots of quick guys, and he did it comfortably. I'm going to come home in 6th place, just behind Fernando Alonso and just ahead of Marcus Ericsson. So that's the French Grand Prix completed, half of the championship done. And here we are on the podium, Van Dorn in 3rd, Nico Hulkenberg in 2nd, and Daniel Ricciardo in 1st. Now, I said in the Austrian Grand Prix that Raikkonen, he doesn't look like he could care less if he's on the podium. Ricciardo, I said, was the exact opposite. Look at him. A beaming, permanent beaming smile from Daniel Ricciardo. We'll see him turn around briefly, and look at him. That is a guy who is happy to have won a Grand Prix. And of course, that's no discredit to Raikkonen. I love Raikkonen. Anyway, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Van Dorn, Bottas in 4th. Alonso, myself, Ericsson, Sainz, Perez. Anyway, here we are for the American Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. And of course, once again, the starting grid, a reverse of the Drivers' Championship. I haven't showed you the Drivers' Championship standings after the French Grand Prix, just to inject a bit of mystery into the starting grid for this Grand Prix. I think that's a Force India driver on the front. That would be Esteban Ocon. Yes, it would, because of course Esteban Ocon was doing fantastically well in his home Grand Prix, but then spun around, finished towards the back of the grid, still, as of yet, has only scored, I think, 1 point all season. Ocon is on pole position, Marcus Ericsson again in 2nd, Charles Leclerc in 3rd, then it's Sainz, Stroll in 5th, Perez, Grosjean, Hartley, Alonso, Gasly. You see, we're noticing a trend. The bottom team drivers, now they're scoring points less and less often. They're moving slowly their way down the Drivers' Championship and thus towards the front of the starting grids. Daniel Ricciardo, the most recent race winner, is starting last on the starting grid, which means he is topping the Drivers' Championship. Anyway, once again, this is another race where I'm starting around the midfield places. 13th place, I think the lowest I've started in any race so far. And the lights are out, and away we go for the American Grand Prix. Stoffel Van Dorn to my left-hand side. A fantastic start. Actually, my start was comparable to everyone else's for the first time all championship. But I'm stuck around the outside. Vettel going slowly. He's got other cars, other drivers to deal with. Sirotkin passing me, going incredibly slowly as he's trying to find a way past Sebastian Vettel. Sirotkin has passed Sebastian Vettel. So it wasn't exactly the best start for me, but for Vettel, well, that's a disappointing start. Vettel has lost places off the start. I'm right behind him, and we all know what's going to happen here, because this is a very sharp, slow speed turn coming up, so me and Sirotkin had the same idea. In fact, Sirotkin getting past Pierre Gasly. And in fact, I've got past Gasly as well. Nothing to do with power, that was all on traction. However, the position is solidified because, of course, I've got a Ferrari engine, he's got a Honda engine. This is deja vu, isn't it? Esteban Ocon on the front row of a starting grid, and once again, a start which didn't really go as planned. In the French Grand Prix, he started towards the front and then didn't finish. Well, he didn't come out of the first corner in first. Same here. Marcus Ericsson has got one over on him. So fantastic start for Marcus Ericsson, less so for Esteban Ocon, who really, I thought his race starts would have been a bit better. There is a slight run towards the first corner. There's certainly some time for him to use his Mercedes engine. Also, he was starting ahead of Ericsson in the first place. Ericsson got past Ocon before Ocon even crossed the start-finish line. Ocon's initial getaway was awful. Sainz, however, is in 3rd place, still ahead of Charles Leclerc, and Stoffel Van Dorn. This is a guy who had a great start. unsettling Sebastian Vettel. Vettel is, I think, just to his right-hand side. Yes, there's Sebastian Vettel coming up alongside him, but Van Dorn in between the Toro Rosso and Ferrari cars, and Van Dorn just went through the pair of them. That's the thing, is Vettel couldn't turn into the corner more because Van Dorn was there. Van Dorn had nowhere else to go because there was a Toro Rosso driver there. You can see Vettel hung out to dry on the outside. So fantastic start for Stoffel Van Dorn yet again. Van Dorn in this Grand Prix and the previous Grand Prix in pressing. Sebastian Vettel on board from him because I said Ocon had a disappointing start. Sebastian Vettel, his start really, initially it doesn't look great because, well, Van Dorn's start was fantastic, no doubt about it, but then it was just rounding the first corner. Vettel was stuck on the outside line, and yeah, it's difficult to describe really. It's just Vettel had nowhere to turn in, nowhere to go. When he tried to accelerate out of the exit of the first corner, couldn't get away initially. Van Dorn was in front of him. Sirotkin, better exit, got in front of him. Speaking of Sergei Sirotkin, he's the guy I've next got to pass, and that is exactly what I've done. Down the inside, heading uphill towards the first corner, downhill now on the exit, and that is me up into 11th place. However, there's not really any difference between 10th and, well, no, between 11th and 12th and 13th, although actually in this championship quite possibly, because of course with the Drivers' Championship constantly determining the starting grid, and with the starting grid always being a reverse of that, the Drivers' Championship standings are always close. So you could easily have drivers who are on the same points count, especially as it's only a 6-race championship. Anyway, that was Perez once again making movements upfield, and that's, well, both Perez and Ocon set the fastest lap. I've just beaten that fastest lap, and I don't think anyone behind me has. So briefly, Kevin Magnussen and myself holding the fastest lap. More importantly, I've dived my way up the inside and into a points place. So I'm into 9th place. And encouragingly, the next guy ahead of me is Brendan Hartley. The two guys behind me are the two McLaren drivers. So in terms of power output, I'm the top guy around me. And that is an easy move on Brendan Hartley. Hartley had DRS. I'll be honest, it didn't really seem like it. That's how much I was gaining on him down the straights. Anyway, now this gets tricky, because from my perspective at least, this reverse grid Grand Prix suddenly becomes a normal Grand Prix. I've got Romain Grosjean to pass, but also we're both trying to get past Lance Stroll at the same time. Grosjean hasn't made the move stick because it's the inside line for Lance Stroll, and Grosjean, he just needs a good drive out of the corner, and he hasn't really got it. Still, just moving to the side. Romain Grosjean definitely trying to force Lance Stroll off. Well, not off, but out of the normal racing line. What was Lance Stroll doing there? I'm sorry, but in the French Grand Prix, we had Valtteri Bottas, who was very kind in giving me space. Lance Stroll, that was a donation. Anyway, Brendan Hartley, a Honda versus a Williams, polar opposites. Even though the two cars, overall, one lap pace are quite similar, but polar opposites when it comes to straight line speed. Despite that, in fact, that's a lock up there for the Williams man, but Brendan Hartley, well, this is the part of the track where his car is in theory better, but then again, down the start-finish straight, Hartley so much quicker than the Williams man. Yes, Hartley had DRS, but even then, that should only really balance out the two cars, surely. And he was closing up at quite a race. Of course, he did have slipstream as well. Anyway, Esteban Ocon, the man in second place. We saw his initial getaway wasn't good. He lost the race lead to Marcus Ericsson. This is the final lap of the Grand Prix. Esteban Ocon behind Marcus Ericsson. He has got to make this move stick. It is now or never. Marcus Ericsson locking up. That's given Ocon the space, the opportunity to take the race lead, but Marcus Ericsson still in for He's still in contention for the race win. And Ericsson, well, he had the inside line for that corner, but now it's a long left-hander. Ocon's on the left-hand side. And Ericsson, no, the drive out of the corner is not good enough. Esteban Ocon has taken the race lead from Marcus Ericsson. Ericsson led the race for about 4.5 laps. Ocon took the race lead away from him right at the very end. It's a race win for Esteban Ocon. Marcus Ericsson will finish in second, and I will finish just behind my teammate. That's the thing is, because the grids aren't truly reversed, well, they're a reverse of the Drivers' Championship. It means that it doesn't take long before the race, for some people at least, doesn't really become reversed anymore. Because, you know, for me, passing Grosjean wasn't exactly going to be academic. We've got the same car. And of course I never did. Much like in the French Grand Prix, you still had the battle between Vettel and Hamilton. The difference was that was a battle, instead of being for first or for second, it was a battle for 11th. Well, 12th actually, because they were both trying to get past Stroll. So that's what I said in the first episode. The grids are mixed up. They're a reverse of the Drivers' Championship, but you do often get 2 or 3 similarly paced cars battling together at the same time. Anyway, what a podium. Ocon, Ericsson and Sainz. Charles Leclerc just about missing out on a podium finish. Perez, Grosjean, myself, Hartley, Lance Stroll, Stoffel Van Dorn in 10th, scoring a point. Of course he scored points in the French Grand Prix as well, but that's 2 points finishes on the bounce. And the Drivers' Championship is being headed by Daniel Ricciardo. Esteban Ocon in second, Marcus Ericsson in third, ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen. At the start of this episode, Raikkonen and Hamilton were the 2 drivers at the top. And in the Constructors' Championship battle, Force India seem to be good when it comes to reverse grid championships. First, Red Bull in second, Alfa Romeo Sauber in third, then it's Renault, Mercedes, Haas, Ferrari down in 7th. Red Bull Toro Rosso, yes. Toro Rosso in 8th, McLaren 9th, and Williams. It may be a reverse grid championship, but Williams are still bottom in the Constructors' Championship. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next episode, the final episode in this Sprint Championship, in which we'll be finding out which driver and which team wins the F1 2018 Sprint Championship. So I'll see you guys in the next and final episode.